The views and opinions expressed on this program do not reflect the company, owners, management, staff, clients, or partners.
It's Friday, the 9th day of December, 2022. Welcome to the Daily Hour, brought to you by Medical House, One Communications, and Lindos. I'm Jamel Hartman. She's Sherry Vanderpool, and Tamara McHale will hopefully be with us in a bit to bring you the latest in her news break, brought to you by People's Pharmacy. Sister Sherry, how does it go? It's TIFG?
TGIF.
Oh, I was playing. I knew that, folks. I knew
that. Sure.
Oh, where's my joke book? Hold on 2 seconds.
No. No need to go there.
Sorry.
No.
So how are you this fine Friday, Sister Sherry?
I am wonderful. It's Friday. It's one of my best friend's birthday. She turns 50. Happy birthday to Shawnette Lewis. Yeah, I said it.
All right.
All of it. Yes.
All right.
She's the first of our friend group to go through.
She gave you permission to tell,
Yeah, that's why we're friends. She knows me well.
Okay. Well. So, Shawnette Lewis, I don't know who you are, but I had nothing to do with that. If you see me walking down the street, minding my business, please don't come and give me any Sherry, Yeah, I had nothing to do with it.
50, and she looks good.
Mm-hmm. Good. We actually have rules. We don't talk about anybody's age unless it's Sherry on this show.
48.
Yeah. That's all. I mean, yeah.
Knocking on it.
Yeah.
You wish, Jamal.
You're almost there. You're almost there. Don't worry. You'll get there. Greetings, everyone, and thanks for making us part of your daily routine. We've got a good one today. Of always good conversation when we have Bermuda College lecturer and economist Craig Simmons. He's coming on to discuss what else? The economy. So this should be a good one, and I would encourage every and any Bermudian to tune in very closely to the conversation today, because just this week, what was it? Groceries up 10%, or bit like the inflation. I mean, I just don't understand, right? How you're up by that, but then the government. I mean, Bermuda's version of Herschel Walker, Jason Hayward, will come on and talk about, oh well, it's only 3.5%. I mean,
not Herschel Walker.
Well, I know that's insulting. I shouldn't do that to her. But anyway, I'm being on a real note, though. I mean, who do you trust more? Someone who is elected and appointed, or someone who's studied and researched?
Yeah,
I don't know, but we'll be discussing those kind of things today. The economy with Craig Simmons. We'll also be doing the daily play, which is more holiday trivia. But first, I need a vote from the audience. Should I do a joke today? Audience, let me know. Would you like to hear a joke today? A holiday joke? I could
get any comments real quick.
Why would you do that, Sherry? What would you say,
sorry.
Sherry?
No.
You don't want to. No. You don't want to hear a joke?
Excuse me. No. See, you're making me cough already.
Well, I want to do a joke, so it's 1-1. How's that? So we need a tiebreaker. Audience, do you want to hear a joke today? Let's see what the audience says. We got a yes in the audience. We've got a yes.
Who's that? Yes.
Karen.
Rashida.
2-1. We've got Renee. Renee. 3. All right. So look, everybody wants to hear a joke. Everybody wants to hear a joke.
Chica, come on now.
All right. Let's get a morning joke. Let's get a pick me up today, folks. Aha. All right, here we go. How did the snowman get to work?
How did the snowman get to work? I don't know. He rode.
By icicle. Get it? By icicle, bicycle, by icicle.
Yeah, I got it, Jamal. But it was your whole laugh at the beginning. Move on. Remember, keeping
Renee
things
Simmons,
tight. Let's
we
go.
appreciate you. We appreciate you. All right, let's now that you all's woken up, thank you.
Now I
Too
want to
much.
follow the rules. Come on,
You
Jamal.
all's
Stay
too
on
much.
time.
You all's too much. Brother Sean, give me a chance at Bermuda College. Let me come up and roll out. Let me roll out. All right. Let's get serious.
You want to use a bicycle to get there?
Wow. You know, so Sherry, my
Come
mama
on.
didn't laugh at many of my jokes, and wife did. I know that they tried. They were laughing inside. But let's get into today, folks. Like I said, we've got Craig Simmons coming up. We're talking about the economy, obviously. It's some things happening in Bermuda right now, or not, and it affects all of us. But the question of the morning, I read an article on Burn News from former Senator Dwayne Robinson, who's been a candidate for the One Bermuda Alliance. It looks like it may be debated today in the House, the minimum wage. And I guess the question, let's ask this question first. Yes or no, do you agree with a minimum wage in Bermuda? Yes, just answer that. Yes or no, do you believe in minimum wage in Bermuda? Are you in favor of a minimum wage in Bermuda? Are you in favor of minimum wage in Bermuda? Yes or no? Just a yes or no. Are you in favor of minimum wage in Bermuda? Yes or no? You have a yes or no, Sherry?
I do. And I'm gonna go with a no. Because if you have a minimum wage, is it a minimum wage and capped off like for the rest of your life in this sense? And the thing is that you've seen movement with the minimum wage, but what it's been like every 20 years or something, but cost of the living keeps going up each year. So to me, that feels very unbalanced. If your minimum wage and it's going up every 10 years and your cost of living is going up every year, how is that balanced?
Okay.
So,
well, we see how it's worked in the U.S. Yeah.
Because I think we're still like $5 or something.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's see what the audience. Yes or no? Are you in favor of minimum wage in Bermuda? Dr. Maria Simmons says no. Sean DeShield says no. Sean Smith says no. Carla John says yes, in favor of minimum wage. Interesting. Charles H. Jefferson II says no. Renee Simmons says no. Living wage. Dr. Siemens says living wage. And Silas Lynch says no. And Rashida Godwin says no, because research shows it hasn't worked in other countries, with Canada is interesting. Let me say, that's why we put that first question. Because I guess my question is, where has minimum wage truly worked? And we do have Mr. Simmons on today. He was a part of the Wage Commission, so he will have a lot of facts and information if he chooses. That's not part of the conversation today, but I'm sure he may want to weigh in once he comes on. But I guess I would like to know, for people who are in favor of it, where has it worked? Where has it actually worked? So the question of the morning is, how do you believe minimum wage will be helpful for Bermuda? How do you believe it'll be helpful for Bermuda?
I don't think it will be helpful for Bermuda if we don't have a balance between the two. And I think what the audience was saying, living wage, means that a wage that is in agreement with what the living cost of living is. And if that's the case, then I can understand that, because that should match the cost of living. But minimum wage is a cap.
But in fairness, we have to remember that when Mr. Cordell Riley was on the show from the Wage Commission, which Mr. Simmons is a part of as well, he did say, if I'm not mistaken, I remember, he did say that the minimum wage was a first step to living wage. So I believe that's what was said. I could be wrong, folks, but I believe Mr. Riley did say that
So how long did we stay on the first step then?
Well, that's something that they would have to act. You all don't mind. I'm just gonna have me a non-alcoholic mimosa if you don't mind.
Really?
Yeah.
But so what is like, how long do we stay at the minimum wage step before we get to the living wage?
And
Are
that's
they
those are
done
valid
at this?
questions.
Are they done at the same time? Do we have to do one first? It doesn't make any. It doesn't make any sense. And maybe Ms. Simmons can enlighten me. I don't know.
Yeah, and
Um,
I think it's fair. I think it's fair to ask that because it's graphs that go around in the U.S. all the time about you know the richest person versus minimum wage in 1985, whereas the richest person now versus minimum wage is the same, but that the richest person went from like 1 billion to like 200 billion, right? So
yeah,
you saw how unbalanced it is. It's an interesting dynamic, but I'd like to know where do people think it's worked? Like, how do you believe minimum wage will be helpful for Bermuda? Sean Smith says, I remember when I used to get a cost of living increase every year from my employer back in the 90s.
I
Sean
remember.
DeShield says, minimum wage forces businesses to lay off workers and raise unemployment levels. Well, let's talk about this.
Mm.
My first thought, and again, I'm not educated on minimum wage, but my first thought is minimum wage, if you let's say minimum wage, they're saying 16 something, right? Let's say $17. You set it at $17. You're telling me that a retailer who's paying $25 is not going to say, oh, all the law says I have to do is give you $17. All right, well, that's what we're going to do, right?
Right.
It's very possible they can do that. No, there are other instances where people may be getting paid less, say $10 an hour, and we know that's just not, a way that people can support themselves. Should we look at it by industry? Should we look at it by, job category, right? How does it work? I just don't see. And again, just thinking about the U.S., I don't think minimum wage works in the U.S.
No, it does not.
I don't I look around. I go to like committee meetings. I'm on a couple of committees here in South Florida, and they're having a challenge finding people in the hospitality industry throughout the industry, right?
Mhm.
And one major hotel here, which I got to visit for the first time the other day, apparently is paying front desk people like 26 an hour, and then smaller brand of hotel is saying that's ridiculous. We can't afford that, right?
Mm.
I believe that the market must drive, right? I believe the market must drive things. And if the market drives things, I think people have a better opportunity to make money and are not going to be exploited. And I just don't think minimum wage saves people from being exploited.
Got you.
We see it happening in these fast food chains. And then we've spoken about this on this show before, that without price controls, and no, I'm not saying I'm in favor of price controls because you all like to run with stuff, right? But without price controls, how does it really work? Because, as we said when Mr. Riley was on, if that chicken sandwich, right, that chicken sandwich is $7 right now, right? And, they're paying staff $8 an hour. Well,
Hmm.
if you now say we have to pay staff 15, you think that chicken sandwich is not going to increase to make up for that
Right.
loss? So how does it work? So I guess, again, the question is for folks who believe that a minimum wage will be helpful for Bermuda, how will it be helpful? What problems would it solve? How will it change things for Bermuda and Bermudians? As far as a living wage, I'm just not quite sure any of them will work.
Yeah. And the other part is, until we get the cost of certain things to go down, this will never really be balanced. And is that
Mhm.
cost ever going to happen? Possibly
Yeah,
not.
yeah.
It possibly will not. It may level off for a little while, but it may just stick to what it is. Because I haven't seen 99 cents or $1 gas in the United States in the
Mhm.
past 20 years. We've never gotten back to that.
Mhm. Well,
Never.
you're correct. You're correct, Sherry. It's crazy. Like when I used to travel to the U.S. as a youngster, I remember the dollar menu. You know what I'm saying? Like, come on, mama, you can't tell me you ain't got no money to get fast food. You just don't want me eating the junk. But No, we ain't got no money. It's 99 cents. Well, it's actually $1.08 when you include the tax. You know what I'm saying? But
Right.
my point is, you don't see that anymore. Gas. I mean, when I was living in Alabama, I was paying $10 a week for gas.
This is it.
Now we're talking 20 something years ago, but you get me. Let's go back to the
Yeah.
comments. Sean Shields and Super Mario.
Minimum wage is known to not alleviate poverty. Yeah.
Mm,
A minimum wage for a given job, okay, but a living wage to suit 18 to 40-year-olds not doable.
Trying to understand that one a bit. Just add some more clarity there, Super Mario. Just trying to understand it a bit. Michael Daniel says, we in Bermuda have an opportunity to say no to establishment that cannot support minimum wage. But that's not the question, Michael Daniels. The question is, how do you believe minimum wage will be helpful for Bermuda? I mean, I'll support an establishment that says no to it because I don't understand how it's going to be helpful. I live in, look, let me be very clear. I'm Bermudian to the bone. I actually got offended recently when someone I've known for probably 20 years said to me, oh, you're losing your accent. Oh, no, I haven't. Get me cussing. But anyway, that's another show. But I'm Bermudian, but I've lived in the US for half of my life. Sherry, for more than half of her life. The point I'm making is minimum wage doesn't work here.
No.
It does not work here. So I'm trying to understand, like, why are we saying no to an establishment that cannot support minimum wage? Like, why are we, like, I get educated. I'm literally here to be educated this morning because I don't understand how it will work. That's my point.
And let's also be very transparent in the sense of it doesn't work in the US, and the US has more options, right? So you have more options to 99 cents bread to $5 bread.
Correct.
If it doesn't work in a place that has a variety of options, how is it going to work in a place that has minimal options? It's either $2 or $3.50. You don't have a broad sense in between to even try to finagle that. So if it doesn't work in the place that has more options, how is it work in a place that has less options?
And we haven't even discussed, Sherry, how businesses will respond, right? So let's say a business says, okay, got to pay a minimum wage. All right, cool. Not only will we pay our staff that $17 an hour instead of the $22, $25 we were paying them, but what we're also going to do is cut back on staff. So now people are out of jobs. Now, let's not forget what some of the fast food chains do. I went to Target yesterday. I meant to send you guys the picture. Went to Target yesterday. 25 registers. How many of those registers you think were open?
One.
Well, it's holidays, so they had two.
One of them being customer service, I'm sure.
Well, Sherry, you just must live in the US. My point is, folks, is when government tries to do stuff like this, it, again, you know that saying, you go to the casino, the house always wins? The business comes out on top. So I'm literally, no one's told me yet, or us in the audience, where minimum wage has worked, number one. And number two, how will it be beneficial for Bermuda? I'm really trying to figure it out.
Here we are.
That place.
It won't work. Exploitation will increase and prices won't decrease. Still won't decrease.
Oh.
How would it help Bermuda? I don't think it would be helpful to Bermuda at all, Jamal.
No. I just think.
And if you don't, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, and even if you dropped it to $17 an hour, and I know we're just throwing out this number as well, and you're like, or no, you keep everyone at 27, you're going to then have to, as you said, job losses, because if you want to keep that 27 for those employees, but you can't pay everybody the same. if the cost is still, it's just not balanced.
Well, I heard there's a job fair for hospitality at Hamilton Princess next week, right?
Mm.
We've had a few of it in South Florida here, trying to get people into the industry because there's no one to work at restaurants and hotels. But I want to go to this job fair to kind of get an idea, just see if there's similarities to her. So I don't know if anyone in the audience is going to be there, but I'm going to try to check that out. We're gonna take a quick break. Bring in Mr. Simmons early, so that we can have a conversation. Super Mario says employers pay a wage for the job at hand, not a variable wage dependent on the person, be they 18 or 40. Guess I don't understand how living wages are calculated. Okay, employers pay a wage for the job at hand, not a variable wage depending on the person, be they 18 or 40. Guess I don't. I get what he's saying. He's saying, are you, I'm saying he, she, I don't know if it's he or she. I guess what the person's saying, Super Mario, is that people should be paid for the job they're doing regardless of their age.
I think so.
Yeah, okay.
And it was two parts to that I got, though, but I was like, minimum wage can't be for a person for 18 to 40. I got that as where you're paying bills and you're doing stuff.
Okay.
That's how I read it.
All right. Well, let's go to a break and we'll come back with Mr. Simmons in a few. So folks, stick with us. You can keep filling in, but please, we're going to have a deep conversation about the state of the economy. You don't want to miss this. So yeah, let's take a quick break. Be right back.
Let's face it, life can be a little wild, but shopping doesn't have to be. I choose People's, so that whether it's a prescription that needs to be filled, a toy for my little terror, or a gift for a new addition to the family, we'll see about that. Everything's available in one convenient location. Some call it People's, I call it my one-stop shop in the city. People's, we're here for you.
Welcome to the new bulk store, Lindo's. Need a quick, tasty lunch at home? Your chicken nuggets will be jumping right out of the freezer. What's a movie night without popcorn? You can never have too much. Lindo's Next Level. Why go anyplace else?
Mom's celebrating her 70th birthday next month. Have you noticed her age is catching up with her?
Yeah. Plus, she's having a hard time getting up and around like she's used to. I would sure hate to see her fall.
At Medical House Limited, we can help make life situations easier. We have electric beds, motorized scooters, bath stools, walkers, you name it.
Mom's been real good to us. We'll get her birthday and Christmas gifts from Medical House.
Medical House has relocated next to the Dendytown Field, number 6 Bakery Lane, Pembroke. Telephone 292-3622.
All righty, welcome back to the Big Show. Sherry Vanderpool, I'm Jamel Hartman. It's the Daily Hour, brought to you by Medical House, One Communications, Lindo's, and People's Pharmacy. Sherry, you got a days of the year for us?
I do. Way back in 1843, Jamal. You know about this time. The first commercial Christmas card was created in England by Sir Henry Cole, a civil servant who was responsible for the idea of sending greetings. So today is Christmas Card Day, and it's all about paying tribute to the creation of this type of greeting card. For some people, they love nothing more than purchasing Christmas cards for everyone they know and writing special messages inside. For others, they can't remember the last time anyone had given them a Christmas card. No matter what the category you fall into, there is no denying that it is nice to send people cards at Christmas to wish them well for the year ahead. If you don't usually send Christmas cards, why not make this year the year that you finally do? I used to be that person, not so much anymore. Yeah,
Oh,
I used to mail them out and all of that good stuff, but that hasn't happened in many years now.
I remember, like, years ago before the internet and people, you had your pen pal friends all over the US. And, well, that was my nana, actually. And they would send cards and everyone's face lit up in smiles. And I wondered if people still send handwritten physical cards. I see one or two every year, but it used to be so cool. Now people send pictures of their families and stuff, right?
Yeah, I used to get the little boxes. I used to get like 2 boxes of 10 and sit down and write them out and
Mhm.
send them. Remember back in the day, you used to have a string and you used to put the Christmas cards and hang them up, and nobody does that anymore. Do they? I would love for the audience to let me know. Do they send Christmas cards? Do they
Mm,
love to receive them?
Even my godparents gave me cards, and with my godchildren, oh, here's $50. That's how I am. Hey, I just want to give a shout out to everyone who you all are showing us love. Thank you so much. Again, as of this past Monday was the first time that you can actually view the Daily Hour live. On the dailyhour.com. So we understood that a lot of people do not have social media, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. So we now have bought this show where it's just simple as going on a website. Just go on the website and it's right there. Just scroll, hit play, and you are tuned in. So shout out to everyone over there on the dailyhour.com right now, tuning in. Again, if you would like to comment, you can only comment if you're on Facebook or YouTube, but we are working on some things so that you can comment, ask questions, and the like with us. So thank you for your support. And we're just trying to continue to find ways to improve the experience for all of you so that you can enjoy your favorite morning show. That said, let's bring in our guest for the day. We have, I like term honorable, but he probably doesn't like it. I like the term wise, but he probably doesn't like it. But
Oh, school teacher probably doesn't like
yes,
it.
educator. Um,
Educator.
yeah, but he is a voice that so many respect and love to listen to. He is self-critical at times, doesn't want to sound too nerdy. But I honestly do appreciate that he makes so much time for this audience to break things down to us. So without further ado, let's bring in our guests today. We've got Craig Simmons. He's an economist and lecturer at the Bermuda College.
I
Welcome
hope I
back.
was a good person. Oh, okay.
There we go. Sherry's showing off. She's showing off.
I hope I was a good student at Sands. You
The
were at
best.
Sands. Thank you.
Now, Mr. Simmons, you don't have to start off the show with untruths. I didn't know he was your teacher.
Yes,
Oh,
the 80s.
well, I'm gonna put you on the spot now, Sherry. Mr. Simmons, you heard what she was saying about minimum wage, right? You got to educate us because, again, my opinion is literally just based from living in the U.S. Nothing more. It's not based on any research. It's just based on me looking at the United States, where I don't believe it's worked. And I know you were on the commission. We also Cordell Riley has been on this show a couple of times to discuss it. But you saw the audience. Only one person said that they believe it'll work, and then some said that no, they want living wage. I do believe Mr. Riley, and correct me if I'm wrong, said that minimum wage is the first step to living wage. But I mean, we're not here to discuss that today, but did you have anything you wanted to add on that?
But I suppose the big question is, what is the point? Minimum wage, living wage, they're not going to solve the problems of poverty. It's an attempt by governments to make things better for people that live at the bottom of the socioeconomic ladder. That's basically it. It's nothing more, nothing less. It's as much a philosophical question as an economic question. I mean, although, quite frankly, economics and philosophy should be lumped into the same boat. Economics has lost its way by being, I think, overly technical. We need to have these kinds of discussions about the benefits, the costs, the benefits of a minimum wage. And there are costs associated with a minimum wage. A lot of it, it's a nuanced argument. So, for example, setting the minimum wage at $25 would be disastrous. It would lead to massive unemployment because employers would just not hire unskilled workers. And that's a good point. The minimum wage is designed for unskilled people, not for professionals and so on. So it's about sort of raising the floor, if you will. And so in Bermuda, I think we've been fairly careful about setting the minimum wage not too high, which begs the question, is it set too low? Will it make any difference? I quiz students in my class. A young lady recently started working as a cashier at a pharmacy, and she boasted the fact that she's making over $17 an hour. Other students that work at grocery stores are making north of $20 an hour. So, it begs the question, at $16 or $17 an hour, will the minimum wage make any difference? Will it lead to massive unemployment? Well, there's no way to really answer that question. And the other thing is, if it isn't going to make any difference, what's really the point?
Yeah.
Sorry. I get it. But I think the challenge is, you heard the example I gave about Target, right?
No.
What happened with Target was, I went to Target yesterday and there's 25 cash registers. Only 2 had people there, and it's obviously the holidays. Everything else was self-checkout. To many, that's a response to things being told, you have to raise your pay and so on. And, I would hate for something like that to happen in Bermuda, because wouldn't you agree that jobs are already scarce?
Yes. And as I told my students the other day, you really don't want the pay for cashiers to go too high, because it's very easy for the employer to simply turn the cash register around and you can have self-checkout. So, there is this balance that has to be struck. And you're right. I mean, jobs are hard to come by, although I'm hearing that in the construction industry, there's a serious demand for talent. And of course, there's a history behind that we haven't been creating talent in the construction industry. There's also a shortage of people in the hospitality industry because we haven't been training people there. So I think the arguments need to be specific to the jurisdiction. You mentioned in the States, I mean, there are shortages in just about every unskilled category, and that's come about because of the pandemic. People have they've decided that they're going in different directions with their life, that they're not going back to flipping burgers in a McDonald's, or they're not going back to an Amazon warehouse. And so these employers are offering, relatively attractive signing bonuses, which is something that unskilled workers just weren't entitled to. So the world is a different place post-pandemic than pre-pandemic. A lot of the rules that were in place pre-pandemic are perhaps no longer relevant post-pandemic. And the United States is known for its ability to adjust. Recessions in the United States tend to last fewer months than recessions in other countries because it's a free market country. When you compare that with what's happening in Europe, where there's a lot more regulation, minimum wages tend to be higher in Europe. There are many safeguards in place to make sure that employers can't get rid of people. It's really a different idea of what the common good looks like. The United States can be accused of being this sort of wild West savage place that eats the poor up and spits them out. Europeans look at the United States and say, well, God, thank goodness we don't live in that country. So it's a philosophical question. Where do you want to live? What type of economy, do you believe serves the interest of the masses? An American economy where it's demand and supply, and it's this sort of focus on doing well by any means necessary, or sort of the European model that tends to cuddle the unemployed and cuddle the poor. again,
It's
that's a philosophical question.
Yeah, it's interesting,
Yeah.
and I think it's a fair question. And it's a conversation that I think we should be having amongst ourselves very often. Let's switch gears now because just the other day, well, there's a lot of articles and opinions about the state of Bermuda's economy, about investment. But I'd like you to break something down for us because, again, when I was in college, Bermudians were bragging, "Oh, we have the best GDP in the world, we're the richest country in the world," all this stuff, right? Just explain to people because we say that, but I don't truly believe people understand what gross domestic product is and how it's used to measure Bermuda's economy.
Well, without getting too nerdy, it's a measure of economic activity, overall economic activity. It's got a lot of faults, but we still use it because we don't have anything better. So generally speaking, it's the value of all final goods and services. And we normally break it down into sort of 5 categories. What consumers are spending on goods and services. Another would be what businesses are spending on machinery, inventory, their physical capital, what the government is spending on whatever government spend things on, including my salary. And then for Bermuda, the most important part would be sort of export spending. And the largest component of that would be spending by international businesses in Bermuda. The second largest component of the export would be spending by tourists. And in Bermuda, the imports are very important. So the largest component of import spending would be merchandise. So we spend about $1 billion a year on that kind of stuff. We spend probably north of 200 million traveling overseas because Bermudians are known to travel. And arguably, this sort of net exports, the difference between exports and imports in Bermuda is something that's been positive since about 1992. So in any given year, Bermuda exports more services than it imports in terms of goods. And so arguably more important than GDP is this thing we call the balance of trade or the current account. And I'll say it again, that it's been positive in Bermuda in every single year since 1992. In that country in which you guys are living, the United States, it hasn't been positive since the 1970s. So the United States has run what we call a current account or trade deficit every single year since the 70s. We can get into why they're able to do it. But the reason why the Bermuda dollar trades at par, 1-for-1 with the US dollar, is because we export more than we import. I like to give the example of you could walk into my coffee house and I might pay for my double macchiato with a Bermuda $10 bill. It's not unusual for me to get change back in US currency. When you stop and think about that, that's a profound act. It tells me that there's lots of foreign currency, US dollars, slushing around the local economy. So much so that you can walk up to a taxi driver and exchange your Bermuda dollars for US dollars. And that's because every single year since 1992, Bermuda has exported more services than it imports. And so I would argue that's the most important component of gross domestic product.
Interesting. And just again, remind people, what are some of the services Bermuda has exported? Because to most Bermudians, our biggest problem is we don't export. That's why we don't have a big economy.
Well, we have a huge economy. If you take the size of our economy, let's just do some back of the envelope arithmetic. You think about Bermuda's economy being worth about $7 billion or producing about $7 billion worth of economic activity in any given year. So 7 billion is 7,000 million. And you divide that by the population. Now, I know our population isn't 70,000, but just keep the arithmetic nice and simple. So you have 7,000 million on the top and 70,000 people on the bottom. And you do that ratio, you're getting $100,000 per person. That means my mother is making $100,000. I've got 4 grandchildren on island. They're like all under 8. Each of them is making $100,000 a year. That tells me that Bermuda still has a very high standard of living. And if you want to divide it by the number of workers, if you think of a workforce of about 30,000, you take the 7 billion and divide it by 30,000, you're talking about each worker taking home over $200,000. I know that's the case. I'm just looking at this thing called an average. And there is a certain absurdity to the concept of average. You know, if you think about the average human being, well, the average human being has one breast and half a penis. It's absurd. I admit that. And we can talk about the distribution of it. But Bermuda's economy, I mean, it's doing very well in terms of producing the services. And if you think about your own life, most of your income nowadays goes on services, not on goods. Goods have become relatively inexpensive to produce. So healthcare, arguably the most expensive service that you will purchase. Well, sorry, housing is a service. Food, that is a good, but many of the things that you spend your money on would be services, and that's where the high value added comes from. International business provides services to people in the United States. I mean, if you're buying a home in the United States, there's a pretty good chance that the insurance behind the mortgage that you're going to buy was made in Hamilton. About half of the insurance that backs mortgages in the United States of America is made in Bermuda. If you're living in Florida, most of the catastrophe insurance that you buy in Florida was made in Bermuda. I mean, that's an amazing feat. And the same thing could apply to Texas. And if you're going to Europe and you're a farmer and you're buying crop insurance, there's a pretty good chance that that crop insurance was made in Bermuda. Now, I don't know about you, but if I got a choice between making something like a insurance or reinsurance versus making some jockey shorts, underwear, I take the insurance, because the jockey shorts, the people who make those things, in some ways are predators, in that they will go to the country that has the lowest labor. So right now they're in Colombia, but in Colombia they organize themselves, they've imposed minimum wages, and so they're all packing up and they're going to Bangladesh. And when Bangladesh gets more expensive, they'll pack up and go somewhere else. Goods, you know, goods have been out of vogue for quite some time, which will help explain why the Rust Belt in the United States, businesses have packed up and left the United States, gone to low-cost jurisdictions.
Well, on Bermuda, because you said something just now, is, you know, about the Bermudian economy. So I believe Jason Hayward, government minister, has basically said that Bermuda is trending positively. Why is Bermuda government saying that? Explain to people why they would say Bermuda's economy is trending positively.
Well, let me be rhetorical and say, you wouldn't expect him to say that we're going to hell in a handbasket.
Why not?
The glass is half full. That's you know, one way of looking at it. I mean, he's a politician. He's also a former student, and I'm very proud of that. We are sort of stuck in a rut. I think that's probably the best way to look at it. So the Minister Hayward made those comments based on, I believe it was first quarter GDP figures for this year, where the economy grew by something like 4 or 5%, I can't remember. And then in the second quarter, well, it trended downwards. And so I have a problem when we spend a lot of time looking at these quarterly estimates. I think you need to step back and look at it over, you know, maybe a 3 to 5 to 10 year period. And the argument can be made that since the financial crisis of 2008, Bermuda economy has not recovered from that particular boom period. And the only sort of year where we saw some growth would have been the America's Cup year, which of course people were heavily critical of. So, we are stuck in a funk. And then there's the question of, so we're comparing Bermuda's economy to 2008, which begs the question, so what was going on prior to 2008? Think about the period from 2000 to 2008. Why was Bermuda's economy doing really, really well? Well, there were a lot of catastrophes. It's because of reinsurance doing really, really well. The 9/11 terrorist attack in the United States brought a lot of capital to Bermuda. That capital coming in meant that Bermudians got jobs in international business, and that money trickled throughout. And then there was a series of hurricanes. There were, 3, particularly in 2005. I'm going to get this wrong. Katrina,
yep.
Rita. The third one, Wilma.
I can't remember.
But those 3 hurricanes injected so much reinsurance capital into the island that we sort of were running on sort of, what do you want to call that? That fuel that they put in dragsters. The economy just flew, but it wasn't because of anything in particular that we did. It was just dumb luck. We, of course, thought that, oh, geez, Bermuda's somewhere special, and, we're doing wonderful things. Politicians would take credit for the wonderful things that the economy was doing, but it was a catastrophe for the folks in the United States who had to suffer through those 3 hurricanes. Bermuda does well. It's interesting, with this pandemic and with cybercrime, Bermuda does well when the rest of the world is in fear, and there are hurricanes, and there's windstorm and earthquakes and fire and brimstone. It's the weird thing. That's when Bermuda's economy booms.
Yeah, you kind of just answered a question I had regarding 2008, the America's Cup, right? In terms of, you explained why we were booming in the early 2000s, but kind of outside of 2017, the year of the America's Cup, as you stated, there hasn't really been any significant growth. And people continue to have this conversation on the side about Bermuda's in a recession. It's not, we never recovered. Are we in a recession heading toward downward, or are we heading upward in the right direction? Like what is the state right now?
Well, we've got this aging population. Our workforce, arguably right now, is just sunk below 30,000. In 2008, our labor force exceeded 40,000. And it's been falling by about 500 a year because we're getting old. This time next year, I will be retired. So the labor force is shrinking, the population is shrinking. And as more people retire, their purchasing, their lifestyle changes. So the early part of my life, spent on educating my kids and just doing the stuff that young people do. And then when you get old, your purchasing changes. So I would imagine that for the foreseeable future, I'm going to be spending a lot more on healthcare. I'm going to be spending more on depends, on the things that old people spend money on, and I won't be traveling as much, and that fundamentally changes spending patterns. It changes employment opportunities. So the demand for people to take care of old people will go through the roof, because I'm going to need someone to take me to the bathroom, to wash me up, to take me to the grocery store, to see my doctor. And these changes are happening, before our eyes, but the underlying economy isn't changing. And so until we can find a way to get people on island, whether it be, increasing the birth rate, or convincing Bermudians like yourselves to come back home, or convincing people just to come to Bermuda, we're going to be stuck in this funk. And by the way, convincing people, I'm not talking about Bermudians, but convincing foreigners to come to Bermuda is not an easy task, because the word is that Bermuda is a very expensive place. We have the most expensive energy on the planet. And so you can offer someone an attractive salary, but they're thinking, well, why don't I go somewhere else? And
Yeah.
so that arrogance that Bermudians have had in days gone by. Oh yeah, we can always get foreigners to come to Bermuda. They'll come. Nah, that ship has sailed. And so we've got some serious challenges about how we're going to attract people like yourselves back to the island, how we can attract people to come back or to come and work in our reinsurance sector or in our hospitality sector.
Mm-hmm.
With respect to hospitality, we've done this sort of, we're in the same kind of boat as the jockey people who go to these low-cost jurisdictions. We bring people from low-cost jurisdictions to work in our hospitality sector. So like 80% of the people that work in restaurants were non-Bermudian.
Yeah.
And I resented that idea, going to a restaurant, ordering a meal, and I can't understand my server because their accent is so thick. But, you know, we want Bermudians, but if you want Bermudians, you need more people. You need to pay them more. Minimum wage comes into play, which means my wage is going. This is a very complicated situation. There are, I'm really afraid that we're going to have a politician that's going to come in like a Donald Trump that will appeal to the worst parts of Bermudians and talk about, you know, the way things used to be and how we've got these funny looking people in our country and we need ethnic purity. And I get really concerned about the populism when things start to go sideways. That's when you can have a real idiot politician come on and do a bunch of harm. And if you want to know what my biggest concern about Bermuda is that we can get an idiot like a Donald Trump because things are so tenuous, because things are sort of heading in the wrong direction. Get somebody on a soapbox and convince people to sort of march them off of a cliff.
As I say, well, don't open up the door for Jamel right now to get into that. But I agree with you, especially when we talk about servers and different things that surround that. And I can go in deeper into that. But you talked about what can be attract to Bermuda. You know, so what does Bermuda need to do to attract more investment into the island?
Okay, so let's start at the beginning. People may find this a bit difficult to accept. It's almost like the average Bermudian earning over $100,000, my mother, my grandchildren, and so forth. But on average, Bermudians save over 40 cents on every dollar that they earn. Savings rate of over 40%. So in any given year, Bermudians save over $3 billion. That's a heck of a lot of money. You know, to put that into context, the government debt in this country is $3 billion. So we could think, oh, wow, why don't we just take the savings from 1 year and we can wipe out all of Bermuda's national debt? 1 year. And we've been doing this every single year for the last 10 plus years. The problem is that most of that $3 billion goes overseas every single year. So my money goes into a pension pot, the pension commission. Well, I think just about every single penny of that pension money goes overseas. Most people's pension money is taken overseas, which means there's very little left over to sort of upgrade the infrastructure of Bermuda. So when you want to build an airport that's going to cost you $300 million or $350 million, you have to rely on someone else to come up with the money to fund a $300 million airport, when in any given year, Bermudians are saving $3,000 million. You know, we'll rather invest in someone else's infrastructure than in our own. That is an indictment against Bermudians. Sorry, but we make these decisions. I can always say, well, I don't sit on the pension commission. You know, I'm not responsible for this. But yes, Craig Simmons, you are. You're a part of this problem where we don't invest enough in our own economy. We don't believe enough in our own economy. It's always better somewhere else. But it's hard for me to understand that it's better somewhere else, where per capita incomes in Bermuda, $100,000 plus, far exceed just about any country on the planet other than places like Liechtenstein. There's only a handful that I can think of. Monaco. This place generates huge amounts of wealth. But we don't believe in keeping it on island. I mean, an ethical question. So if Bermuda, if it's good enough to make all of this money, shouldn't you have a moral obligation to keep some of that stuff here? I'm not trying to suggest that all 3 billion needs to stay on island, but maybe a portion, you've got 3, shouldn't 1 be required to stay on island? Just take the whole kit and caboodle and put it in Google stock or buy shares in I don't know, Sheen or something like that. It bothers me that Bermudians don't seem to have faith. Now, what's interesting is that when the Bermuda government needs money and it creates what's called a bond, an IOU, and it goes to the global market and says, okay, I need to borrow $1 billion. International investors are on it like a dog in heat. They lap this stuff up. We have over $3 billion in debt, and only 50 million of it is in Bermuda dollars, because the government doesn't feel that Bermudians have faith in their own country. If we don't have faith in our own country, why should anyone else? Or put it the other way, why is it that overseas investors have so much faith in the Bermuda economy and we don't? A lot of our problem, I think, is psychological. It's not economic, because our economy is generating a lot of money. Why don't we have that kind of faith in our own?
Yeah.
I'm just putting that out there.
No, it makes perfect sense. Perfect sense.
That scares me. Whenever someone says it makes perfect sense, I start to think, oh God, I've said something wrong.
And I say perfect sense because it's not rocket science. It's not rocket science to know that if you keep your money flowing in your economy, that it's going to be more beneficial than going out. It's interesting to me because I'm real about this. I don't think that I'm not the Bermudian who would be shopping on Amazon if I lived in Bermuda, because I would understand the impact that shopping retail locally does for me and the economy. It keeps my cousins employed, my family. It helps it helps with cost of things. I'm not an economist. I'm no expert. I just understand the simple things like that. Sherry?
I was going to say, and I'm just piggybacking off of that, Jamal, if you looked at all of the persons that are delivering right now, you'll see how much Bermudians spend outside of Bermuda. But switching gears just a little, Mr. Simmons, how would you advise the Bermudians who'd like to earn a piece of the rock as it relates to home ownership right now?
Well, I know where this question is coming from. The government recently launched a $50 million program with Bermuda Commercial Bank.
Yes.
Offering low interest rate loans to first home owners. It's an attempt by the government to get people on the wealth ladder. If you're in the market, that is certainly a way to go. Why wouldn't you want to get a mortgage that has a lower interest rate than, say, the market interest rate? Interesting sort of piece of trivia. This idea was arguably what caused the financial crisis of 2008, at least part of it. The idea that it fueled a housing bubble in the United States, where interest rates were kept deliberately low by the Federal Reserve Bank, the central bank of the United States. And it fueled this housing bubble. Now, that's highly unlikely to happen in Bermuda, but it's an honorable policy by any government, by any central bank, to try and get people on the wealth ladder, because arguably the largest asset that any person is going to own will be a piece of real estate. So it's a good thing. I think you need to come up with 10%, and there's a maximum. I believe the largest that they're willing for the highest home price would be something like 900,000. So don't think about, you're not going to get enough to buy your dream house down in Fairylands. It's sort of going to be a reasonable kind of mortgage. You need to come up with 10%, and then it's I think the base rate is 3%, and this interest rate that the government is offering is like 2% on base. So maybe the mortgage would end up in being 5%, as opposed to what people are paying now, which will be 7 to 9%. And given that interest rates are likely to go up, you can sort of lock in to a relatively low interest rate for maybe 5 or 10 years. If you're a young person, you definitely want to sort of look into that and get a second opinion. So there's no doubt this is something the government has been thinking about, trying to negotiate, and political connections definitely help. I think the CEO around at Bermuda Commercial Bank is sympathetic to the PLP cause, and this is where politics and business work together for the common good, I think, as opposed to the other way. And so it is a good thing. But having said that, for people that can't buy into this program, or people who are thinking about a second or third home, borrowing is going to be more expensive. I mean, of course, if you're flush with cash, you might be able to take advantage of depressed housing prices in certain segments of the market.
Again, not an expert, I just simple economics. You think that with that Bermuda Commercial Bank's doing with the government, I mean, let's remove them. Is home ownership in Bermuda for a first home for someone, say, 25 to 30 years old, it's a decent investment versus saying if they can get property elsewhere for much cheaper? I like the for years people saying earn a piece of the rock, earn a piece of home, but asking yourself, I know of people who have bought homes in Bermuda and have never been able to live life. They couldn't do things they wanted to do because they've been tied to this mortgage, and some of them end up losing the home. So it's like, where did their lives go? But that's where I'm coming from with.
Well, a mortgage, a mortgage is something that ties you down. There's no two ways about that. Unless you're willing to make that commitment for 15 or 20 years. If you want to live footloose and you want to travel, well, maybe renting is the option for you. Or as you suggested, you go to some other jurisdiction and you buy a home. Now, there's always the risk. I can remember many, many years ago when I was a university student in Canada, and it was in the aftermath of the last spike in inflation that saw mortgage rates go to 20%. And the number of Canadians that were losing their homes because mortgage rates were around 20%. They bought into these homes, affordable homes, but they just couldn't afford to finance it. That is the risk that anyone takes who takes out a mortgage. There are no risk-free options. What the government is offering you is a way in. And if there wasn't any risk, well, let me know a place where life is risk-free. It just doesn't exist. And so it may not be for everyone. You need to take a good look in the mirror and ask yourself, is this something that I want to do? Or would I rather take my savings and put it in, say, equities, into the stock market?
Right.
There are many different ways for people to grow their wealth. Real estate is simply one option.
And I think for years people have like, oh, if you don't own a home, you don't have anything. And I know people
Yeah.
who haven't owned homes but have some good wealth because they understand how markets work. And then when they're ready, they're purchasing a home without a bank. So there's ways, and I'm glad you broke it down too. That's just one kind of investment. Mr. Simmons, we are out of time, but it's been too long. I mean, I'm not sure. You've been ditching us. We've it's been like 7 months. This is not like you to just leave us hanging. I mean,
I've been sitting here in front of this screen for 7 months waiting for your call.
Thank you, Mr.
I said, is Mr. Simmons not coming on anymore? She's like, I'll reach out to. I said, at least before the end of the year. I really was like, he hasn't been on. But no, honestly, people love you. They love to hear from you. We didn't get to questions today because the information you were given was just so on point. Thank you so much for sharing information with us, not just on air, but the pre-show stuff is really, really helpful.
Yeah.
And I think that Bermuda needs is more conversations like this, so that we can engage. We have these conversations. You heard about minimum wage earlier. A lot of us are speaking from what we experience, not really what any deep data or research says. So knowing that you have done that, you've been on this commission, and you're sharing your perspective on it, it is really helpful. So thank you so much for that. Hopefully we'll be seeing you again very soon. We'll let you take the holidays off. But hopefully all is well. And thank you once again.
Thank you.
Well, I will sit here and wait for your call.
All right, it's coming.
I'm going to be sitting here waiting.
All right, it's coming. Have a wonderful holiday.
And thank you so much.
No problem. Thank you. Craig Simmons, folks. If you appreciated today's conversation, give us a thumbs up, a love, a like. Again, apologies we didn't get to any the comments. Conversation really flowed. Very direct. If you appreciated the information, the conversation, give us a thumbs up, a love, whatever platform you're on. Obviously, you can't do that on the website, but you can always share the link, share the conversation with your friends and your family. And it's helpful information. Don't go anywhere. We're going to come right back to wrap it up. And also, it's daily playtime. Don't go nowhere.
A lot happens around your home. That is why at One Communications, we have introduced affordable security and video monitoring, because everyone should be able to afford to protect their family. Anytime, from anywhere, One Home Security keeps you connected and puts security in your hands with an easy-to-use smartphone app to control everything. Home security is important to keep you and your family safe. Motion-activated cameras around your home and security monitoring within create a complete security system providing protection both inside and outside your home. Professional monitoring means that there's someone on call with 24/7 protection to notify the authorities and help keep you and your loved ones safe. We are dedicated to whole home protection with indoor and outdoor cameras, smart door locks, motion sensors, and more, so you'll always be connected to what matters most. With professional installation, no upfront hardware fees, and low monthly rates, because keeping your family safe should be affordable for everyone. Total home video monitoring and security, there's no better way to protect your home than with One Home Security.
All righty, welcome back. Thanks again to Craig Simmons. Again, another important community conversation. If you appreciated that conversation, don't forget, give us a thumbs up, a love, a like. Make sure you share it with your friends, family. Discuss it around the water cooler, and it's much better discussion than politics all day, every day at your family gathering this holiday season. It's thanks again to One Communications, People's Pharmacy, Lindo's Medical House for ensuring we're able to have these conversations with you. It's time for the Daily Play, brought to you by Bermuda Trivia, now available at stores throughout Bermuda. Follow Bermuda Trivia on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok to find out why it's Bermuda's favorite trivia game. There is a new edition. It is available. It's the holiday edition of Bermuda Trivia, so you make sure you get that. That's a good fight to have with your family over dinner this holiday season. Sherry, are you ready?
Yeah.
All right, it's holiday trivia. Help her out, folks. Here we go. Oh, it's actually easy. I thought it would be difficult. What dance troupe performed for the first time at Radio City Music Hall on December 27th, 1932?
The Rockettes.
Man, I thought I had a hard one.
Yes. I knew that. I think, did I see them? I know I went to New York during that time.
Yeah, I went back about 4 years ago. I fell asleep. I was tired. It was dark. It was tired. I was tired.
It was dark and you were tired.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, moving on, Jamal. Moving
Yeah,
on.
let's wrap it up, Sister Sherry. Final thoughts on the discussion, minimum wage, and then the conversation with Mr. Simmons.
Well, they go kind of hand in hand, right? I still believe the question was, is it helpful to Bermuda? I don't know if we can find balance, for me. And I think we have to find balance between the economy and this living wage or minimum wage, but there needs to be a balance that will best suit everyone. As far as Mr. Simmons, a wealth of knowledge, a lot of knowledge, a lot of information. And I just think that he just brought to the conversation and was able to kind of lay it out for us what things can look like and give us a different perspective. And I can just appreciate him for that.
Indeed. I just, minimum wage, I understand why people believe it's necessary. I just don't completely understand how it's going to be helpful.
Yeah.
Mr. Simmons is a wealth of knowledge. I appreciate it, that he trusts this platform to engage with us and the audience. And I really believe more conversations like this will be helpful for people to understand the current economic state that Bermuda is in. It's not all bad, folks, if you understand it, but it's far from good. And I think having an understanding of it puts us in a better mental space. You've got some daily inspiration for us, Sherry?
Yeah, I think this kind of wraps up the whole week. Not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it is faced. And that is from James Baldwin.
Gotta face it, folks. We got to face it.
Yeah.
The solutions are not going to come unless we face it. Thanks again to our partners, Medical Health, One Communications, Lenders, and People's Pharmacy for ensuring that we're able to do this with you on a daily basis. As always, we appreciate you, we love you, and we thank you for making us part of your daily routine. If all goes well, we'll be back to do this again with you on Monday. She's Sherry Vanderpool. I'm Jamel Hartman. Please make it a safe and a great weekend. We are out. Peace.